Welcome to the Non-Essential Podcast. I'm Steve Gibson.
I'm Ben Matlock.
And we're here for episode 2 of season 2.
22.
Yes.
So
I planned poorly when I started naming these files back in season 1 because I didn't account for seasons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I still call it in my files. I still say it's 52. Fuck that. Like, you know.
So you sound like you're doing better this week. You're not on the brink of death.
Now it's just that horrible stage of any like head cold where it's just like, God, I'd like to breathe through my nose again. Like, you forget how like you take it for granted, but it's like, man, I don't know how like boxers and shit live where they like just break their nose all the time and they're just fucked.
It's funny because, it feels like it's like I've got two means of breathing. One's just as good as the other. No, that's not true at all.
No, and again, and anytime you hurt yourself or you have some illness, like there are people who are probably more sane than I am who just take that for what it is. But every time it happens with me, it's just like, man, the human body sucks. And I get really resentful about like our natural design. Like, it's just it's just tubes in the wrong spots and then like holes that barely work. And it's just, fuck that.
Yeah.
But yeah, my energy's
I'm always
back.
I'm always amazed at the body's ability to produce mucus in those situations.
Seriously, like I feel like I got bit by the fucking spider that gave Spider-Man his powers, but it just fucked me up instead. Like, I don't have any superpowers, but the shit still keeps coming out of my nose.
Yeah. Like, it seems like way more fluid goes out than in. And,
yeah.
Like, I really start to question physics in those situations.
Well, what is the point? Like, why is that our body's way of dealing with shit? Is like, hey, we'll just suffocate him slowly.
In fairness, if you stop breathing, then the cold no longer is an issue.
Yeah, we gotta shut it all down. But only when he's, like, trying to sleep.
That's the infuriating thing. It's like you feel fine during the day. And you're like, okay, I'm getting better. It's time to go to bed. And your body's like, ha-ha, fucker. Just...
Yeah, so this has been the medical update.
Yeah.
Hate your body and you'll be healthier for it. That's the message on the internet, right? But yeah, last week, if you didn't tune into the debut of the new format, it's just the creepypasta format, basically.
Yeah.
But last week we told the story of the crocodile cult, or why you don't pull over just because a stranger thinks you should.
Yeah, I still like... I think about that now every time I drive. It's like, if somebody pulled up behind me and they're honking and flashing their lights, would I pull over? And the answer is fuck no.
Right.
I'd probably flip them off and then just like speed up, but...
Yeah, it would, like, the only occasion it's like acceptable to do that is to like pull over and come out of your car with a weapon.
Right.
Because that's all it is. Like, then you're ready, to do or die, and you've been egging for a fight. But if you're just like, oh, well, I should see what they want. Like, no, you fucking shouldn't. Fuck them. By what right do they have to talk to me,
Right. Well, what if something's wrong with your car and they're trying to... Fuck it. I don't need help. Let me die in my...
Nothing wrong with my car, all right? It's mine. Mind your business. That was dumb. This week, you brought a story.
Yeah, kind of. We mentioned last week that this season is going to be all about reading fiction. I guess it doesn't have to be even fiction, but reading like single stories, and that it'll be a mix of creepypastas and our
more narrative,
our own
even if it's like fact based. Like it'll still be more of a narrative driven thing.
Right, and I mentioned how, like, it's not going to all be creepypasta, and, when we write stories, I'll be trying to write good stories and, not just going for cheesy. So I thought I'd kick this off with a really cheesy creepypasta.
They're fun, though. They're so fucking fun.
And it's one of those, I've got a couple stories I'm working, one I'm, like, seriously working on. I'm about halfway through, and then a bunch of other ideas. But the creepypasta is the kind of thing that I can sit down and bang out pretty quickly because that's kind of the point, is that it's not overly analyzed or edited. It's just in fact, this one was kind of fun because when I sat down, I didn't even really know where I was going with it. It was just one of these, I'm going to start here and just write like a creepypasta, what I feel creepypasta. Yeah. Like I didn't initially know what the conflict was going to be or this or that. I toyed with having you read it, and I don't know if you read through it because I did have it available. But I
started it. I usually get like an idea of like where it's starting from, and then if you're going to read it, I let you take the rest. But
yeah, so it should be interesting because it's one of those that I'll be trying not to laugh at myself as I'm reading it. And part of it's intentional, and I'm sure there's plenty of unintentional stupidity in there as well.
I just look forward to you like confusing more characters, and this time even you being like, "Wait, what the fuck was I talking about?"
I hedged my bets with that one. There's only one character in the whole story, so
you think that, but there were only two in the last one, and you got the names wrong.
That's true.
When you give them 4 names, it gets hard to keep track of one character.
So anyway, yeah, that's what I got this week. And it's called Man Eater. I don't know why I'm bothering to write this. Nobody will believe me anyway. Why should they? I'm not sure I even believe it myself.
Oh, good. I'm glad we got that out of the way. See you next week.
I feel like we talked about it last week, but I feel like that's the obligatory opening to any creepypasta.
Yeah. That's why the story I'm working on right now is just like, look, you better believe this shit. I'm putting a lot of work into it.
It all started about 3 weeks ago. It was a Tuesday like any other Tuesday. I was home alone, since Mom always works late during the week. I know she thinks it bothers me, having to fend for myself so much, but it doesn't. In fact, I really enjoy the time alone. Or at least I used to. I was watching my favorite streamer, MarkBurger XXX.
Yep, this is a creepypasta, because you're already because no classic horror story will ever be like starting with I was watching my favorite streamer. Yeah,
right. Like I say, sometimes I'm going to try to not write in how I feel is cliche creepypasta. This was not one of those times. So I was watching my favorite streamer, MarkBurger XXX, which I love that name too, eating my usual soggy-ass microwaved pizza rolls and just dicking around.
Oh, you gotta bake those shits. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but I'm a stupid kid, and, that takes too long. Maybe Mom doesn't let him use the oven yet. I don't know.
Maybe MarkBurger says they're better soggy.
I do everything that guy says.
That's why
I had homework, but fuck it. I knew I could finish it on the bus anyway, even if I even bothered to do it at all.
I relate to that.
Yeah, that one was me. It's hard to write a story without some of yourself coming through in the characters.
Yeah. Especially when you are actually a big MarkBurger fan.
Yeah. That probably is a streamer. It just sounded like such a streamery name. Like I said, it was just another typical Tuesday night. I had no reason to think that this night would be different than any other night. Suddenly, the stream started glitching, skipping and getting pixelating and freezing and shit. The fucking internet in this town sucked, and our piece of shit router didn't make it any better. But I needed another cherry Coke anyway, so I went downstairs and unplugged the router, then waited just a few seconds before plugging it back in.
You can tell this is, you put a lot of yourself into this opening, because like that has happened on this very show.
Right, it's the creepypasta / Steve's life. It would take some time to reboot, but I didn't care. I still needed to get another Coke, so I headed into the kitchen. I noticed the house seemed quieter than usual. We live far enough outside of town that there's usually some birds and bugs and shit making all sorts of noise outside no matter what time of day it was. Tonight they were dead silent. I should have known something was up, but I was so pissed about the internet crapping itself again that I didn't really pay any attention to it. I opened the fridge. Fuck, no more Coke. For a second, I thought about grabbing one of Mom's beers instead, but I think she was starting to notice the missing cans, and I figured I better not test my luck. Besides, I knew we had more pop, but it was all the way downstairs. Author's note, I was so torn on what to call that because it's like, I live in this area of the country where it's both soda and pop or cola, or like we basically call it anything here, but that's like such a regional
I've always, like, people use pop sometimes where I'm at, but I've always hated it. Like, and I don't know, it's such a weird thing to, like, get annoyed by, but it's just, why the fuck are you calling it pop?
It's used enough here that like when I hear it or say it, it doesn't bother me. As soon as I wrote it, I'm like, ugh.
Nowhere on like that fucking can does it say pop. All right.
Besides, I knew we had more pop, but it was all the way downstairs. Our house had one of those basement garages with a small room off to the side of that. That's where we kept the unopened cases of pop. I kind of hated going down there at night, though. Not because I was scared, but you gotta admit it's a creepy place. Since it's a basement garage, it's always cold down there, which is nice in the summer, but not so much in the middle of January. It's also full of cobwebs and dust and smells musty. There's spiders, and the 2 light bulbs that hang from the ceiling aren't enough to light the place adequately, even when they're working. But the wiring is such shit that you're lucky if they turn on at all. Again, I wasn't scared to go down there, I just didn't like to. I opened the door leading down.
I'm not a bitch. It pisses me off. I get down there and things get creepy, and then I want to fight.
Right. Like, you can tell. I mean, the braver somebody is, the more that they'll point out that they're not scared.
I'm not afraid. It's just so stupid that why would I ever go down there ever at night? It's dumb.
Right, and that's also an attitude I identify with. Like, oh, I'm totally not crying at this movie, or it's not scary. It's yeah, something else.
It's not entirely sad. Like, I'm just so bored that it's bumming me out.
In fact, it's the opposite. It's so not scary that why even bother?
I'm just a totally apathetic person.
I opened the door leading down to the garage and headed down into the dark. Whoever built this house was a fucking genius and only put one light switch, which was at the bottom of the stairs, so you had to walk down in darkness before you could turn on the lights. I was used to it by now, and so I didn't bother turning on the flashlight on my phone. Step, 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 down I went until I finally reached the bottom. I reached over, hoping to God I'd feel the switch and not one of those big hairy spiders that likes to hide down here.
You know, one of those 6-foot fuckers who hides in the shadows. Like,
that I'm not afraid of, but
like you know, I think almost every house has at least areas where it's like you have to develop this weird like night vision about like you just operate on feel there. But just a slight interruption, but like my mom's house hunting right now, and I've been going with her to check out places, and there's been a ton of these types of like basements that seem like such horror story cliches, but then you got these weird old dudes selling their houses holding the door for you so it doesn't slam shut, and you're supposed to just trust them. And right. And then you have to like navigate by feel in a fucking basement you've never been to before and hope to find the string that'll pull the light and like turn it on.
Those are the 2 rooms. Basements are like that, and then a lot of times bathrooms, because of code, like modern code in a lot of areas, you can't have electricity too close to a sink.
Yeah.
But in a house with a small basement, or plumbing, I should say, not just sink. But if you have a small bathroom, sometimes that means the switch is like on the opposite side of the fucking room from the door.
And frankly, sometimes like it's so like early in the morning or like late at night and you're half asleep, that's kind of started this thing in me where it's like if I can't find the light switch immediately, fuck it, we're doing this in the dark. I have an easier time finding the toilet than like
yeah. Anyway, I was used to it by now, so I didn't bother turning on the flashlight on my phone. I went down until I reached the bottom, blah, blah, blah. To my relief, my fingers touched the smooth, cold plastic, and I flipped the switch. Bang! Fuck, the light bulb in the storage area
shot.
blew. Yes. I knew I hit the wrong switch. That was the gun switch.
Oh, man, that was my Home Alone shotgun rigging I had attached.
Damn it, I forgot. The light bulb in the storage area blew with a bright flash. Well, at least the other light came on this time. I took a second to look around the garage. Everything seemed normal, but something made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. I couldn't put my finger on it, and I figured it was just the shock of the exploding bulb playing tricks on my mind.
Like, that's something, like, he's dealing with, like, a fucking light bulb blowing up, but he can't, like, oven-bake pizza rolls.
Maybe he's just that lazy. He doesn't care.
Yeah, I guess.
Microwave pizza rolls are the worst, but I used to eat them as a...
I'm not, you know, I can't fucking front. I eat a lot of microwave shit. I eat a lot of microwave shit that's better in the oven, but it is funny to just, these soggy pieces of shit. It's like, shit. Well, there's a method for that.
Most of the little storage area was pitch black. The dim light on the only working bulb wasn't enough to light the whole room. But the cherry Coke I was after was right at the opening, and so I still didn't bother to turn on the flashlight. Part of me wishes I had, but I knew there wasn't anything there that could hurt me, except maybe some spiders.
Well, cherry Coke is killing you very slowly.
Diabetes, kids. That's the ultimate.
That's your monster. Story.
I walked over and picked up the 12-pack. I couldn't help feeling like there was something in there watching me from the shadows. I told myself that was stupid, and it was just my brain playing tricks on me. What could possibly be down here anyway? The only door was the garage door, and that was definitely closed. I couldn't help it, though. I felt like if I turned around, something would come up behind me, so I took a few steps backwards, back towards the stairs that led up to the kitchen. I had just about convinced myself that I was being stupid, and I was about to turn around and walk back up to the kitchen, when I heard a thud from somewhere upstairs. What the fuck was that? I said, apparently to myself since nobody else was there. Now I was creeped out, but I sure as hell didn't want to stay in the basement. I went back upstairs, leaving the lights on because fuck it, I didn't want to walk upstairs in the dark. Sure, Mom would yell at me for leaving the light on, but I'd just play dumb and she wouldn't care that much anyway. When I reached the kitchen floor, I paused and listened for any sign of movement. Everything was dead quiet, and that's when I realized how quiet it had been earlier and how weird that was. Now I was really starting to freak out, but I had to figure out what had made that noise while I was in the basement. I checked the front door. It was still shut and locked like I had left it. The back door was locked as well. I didn't think anybody had come through a window. This house was so old and shitty that none of the windows on the ground floor even opened. They would have had to break the glass in order to get through, and I didn't hear any breaking glass, just a thud.
That left me and the Coke to blame.
It was... What is his name? Wiley E. Coke, the inventor of Coke.
He's possessed my soda. My pop, if you will.
Soda pop, if you just be all-inclusive.
A bubbly beverage.
I was about to give up and just call myself an asshole for getting so worked up about something that was probably just the house settling or whatever, when I decided to check to see if the router was back online.
I was about to give up and start whipping myself for being such a dumb idiot.
It's what MarkBurger would have wanted. I walked into the front room where we kept the piece of shit router, and that's when I noticed one of the big chairs was laying on its side. Slowly I walked over to it, looking for any sign of something unusual. What could possibly have knocked this thing over? It's one of those old, heavy leather chairs that looks like something out of a 1950s psychiatrist's office. It would take a decent amount of force to knock it over. I checked out the room for probably 10 minutes. I don't know where I got that amount of time from, because that seems, even in this situation...
That's a long time to just be staring at, like,
in one room. Yeah. But, hey, he microwaves his pizza rolls. He's not the brightest bulb.
Just staring at the router like, could I have so much internet that it blew the chair?
About fucking time. I checked out the room for probably 10 minutes, but I didn't find anything else out of place. It was just fucking weird. I picked the chair up. I didn't want Mom to think I was having a party or something, and I checked the router. The lights were all back on. It looked like everything was good to go, so I headed back upstairs. I sat back down at my desk. MarkBurger was back on, and he was fucking some people up in King of Death Kill, which is definitely a video game name. I don't know why I made up names for stuff, because you could just easily put real games in there.
Yeah.
I put my headphones back on and tried to forget about what had just happened. He was about 15 minutes into his next match when I realized I really had to take a piss. I think it was the combination of adrenaline from earlier and all the cherry Coke I drank. Fuck. I suddenly remembered I'd left the Coke sitting on the counter and hadn't even bothered to grab one. That was the whole reason I went downstairs in the first place. Well, that and the shitty router. I sighed and took off my headphones, but as I turned around, I thought I saw a shadow move past my bedroom door, and I heard the sound of footsteps, but on the wall? I nearly pissed myself. The sound quickly trailed off, and I couldn't see anything else out there in the hallway. A few minutes passed, but there was nothing but silence. God damn it, you idiot, I said to myself. I knew I was just letting my imagination get the best of me. I'd been staring at a computer screen in a dimly lit room. That shadow I saw was probably just a light spot, and the footsteps could have easily just been the sound of gunfire coming through my headset that's always turned up loud enough that you can hear bits and pieces of things even if you're not wearing them. Stop being such a bitch, I told myself. MarkBurger would never let himself get scared like that. I've known that line was coming this whole time. I was trying to say it with a straight face.
That's so fucking good. Like, I'm reading along to just, like, keep pace and stuff. And, this kid fucking idolizes some dipshit named MarkBurger.
I know. I feel I really nailed today's youth culture.
We can't. Fucking MarkBurger wouldn't do that. He would just call somebody a Jew and get banned.
I walked down the hall to the upstairs bathroom and decided I might as well take a dump while I was there. Because, you know. I pulled out my phone and opened the twinge.com app just in time to watch Mark get the win. Fuck yeah. I finished.
Hell yeah, dude. Get his ass, Mark. Yeah. This like idolation of streamers is totally true to the culture. I want more standalone stories about MarkBurger and the trouble he keeps getting up to because he can't like control himself.
Yeah, maybe he'll get a spin-off series. So I finished and headed back downstairs to get that Coke. Though this time I was thinking a little more seriously about grabbing one of those beers instead. I got to the bottom of the stairs, and that's when I noticed the handrail was wet. As I reached out to touch it, I felt a drop on the back of my hand that caused me to suddenly look up. A very large wet spot was pooling on the ceiling, sending drips down to the stairs at an erratic pace. And then I spelled out plop, 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 plop. I don't know why.
Because it's a fucking fun word.
Yeah. Plop. Fuck, this piece of shit roof on this place was leaking again, and that meant we'd have to fight the landlord to send someone out. Again. Fuck this place. I wiped my hand on my jeans and went into the kitchen. As I turned the corner, I noticed that the cardboard case had been torn open and that there was a can of Coke missing. Pop! The sound of the can opening behind me made me jump and spin at the same time, and that's when I saw him. Whatever the fuck he or it was.
MarkBurger. He's here.
Oh my god, what are you doing here? It looked like a man, dressed all in black. He was wearing a suit, but it had this weird oily shine to it, and the fabric didn't seem to move like fabric. It almost looked like it was made up of solid pieces, kind of like armor. His eyes were black and shiny. They looked segmented like a fly's eye. Ah, it said as it took a sip from my fucking cherry Coke. Delicious. I didn't say anything.
Hey, you fucker, that's my Coke.
It's Coke. I didn't say anything. I was still trying to figure out how he seemed to be lounging back on the fucking wall, like he was lying down, but in the middle of the fucking kitchen wall. I think this will go great when I eat you, it said in a slow, even tone, which is, you know, very villainous.
Oh, fuck you. MarkBurger would never get eaten by some weird bitch.
Oh, maybe he would. His name's Burger.
But that just means he's king of burgers.
I just stared. Oh, don't worry, it chuckled. I'm not going to eat you just yet. It's not time. You're not ripe.
Yeah,
but soon.
Yeah, why would I worry then? Like,
no. Okay.
Oh, no, right now. Thank God MarkBurger's on. After he's done, you can do whatever you want. But
you're not ripe, but soon. Oh, soon I'll devour you. Bite by bite. Its jaws clicked as they appeared to unhinge before reattaching with another sickening click. I slowly made my way towards the drawer next to the refrigerator. That's where we kept the knives. Eat me, I said. I'd like to see you fucking try. I tried to sound tough.
I'm a knife master.
Sir. I tried to sound tough, but my voice squeaked and cracked even as I said it. My hands were trembling. It just smiled.
Fuck you up, bitch.
Yeah. Eat me. I'd like to see you fucking try. We'll get better at doing voices and stuff as we go on, I assume. I'm not going to practice. I just assume it'll get better.
Yeah. After 7 years, I'm sure it will.
7.5 is that magic point where it just clicks. I was finally close enough to rip open the drawer and grab a large chef knife at the front. I cut myself a little on the blade as I grabbed for it, and the creature's face seemed to change. It looked hungry, its nostrils flaring slightly as it sniffed the air. Die, motherfucker, I yelled as I lunged at him.
That classic MarkBurger catchphrase.
Yeah, good for the kid. He's going for it.
Yeah, I mean, he's not fucking around. He's not letting this thing do, like, fucking 2-hour horror movie, like, multiple days, like, torment it. He's like, fuck it, we're throwing down.
The knife landed with a thud, plunging into the drywall. He, or it, was gone. Come back here and fight me, I yelled. But I didn't really want that. I hoped it was gone for good. I spent the rest of the night locked in my room, that knife at my side the whole time. When my mom got home, she saw the slash in the drywall. I tried my best to explain it, but how the fuck do you explain something like that?
Some bitch wanted to throw down, and you were ready to roll?
Then he ran. She accused me of getting mad at a video game again, and it was just easier to falsely confess to that.
I mean, I've gotten pretty mad at games. I've never gone to the kitchen, grabbed cutlery to plunge it into the wall.
You stupid fucking wall. You're the reason I can't beat my trials time.
If I fucking had the Coke sooner, I would have fucking been fine.
He's been back every night since, taunting me, drinking my fucking cherry Coke, crawling over the walls and ceiling.
That's what would piss me off the most. It's like, right. You know what, that fucking soda's expensive, man. Like, fuck you.
And I never specify, but I imagine this kid's not quite old enough to drive, or maybe he is, but he doesn't. Like it. He's very much like at the mercy of his mom buying him more Coke.
He's very much a 27-year-old podcaster living at home.
I've tried to take a photo so I can prove that I'm not insane, but every time I try, he simply disappears. I was able to stay at Jimmy's on the weekends, though I had to keep coming up with some bullshit excuse to get him to invite me over.
This is so easy, though. Just set up like one of those rabbit traps, but with like a Coke under the box. And pull the fucking string on him.
String. Ha
fucking asshole.
I had to keep coming up with excuses to get him to invite me over, but that doesn't work during the week when we have school and shit. I thought about getting a gun, but I have no idea how to do that. If Dad was still around, I'd have an entire arsenal at my disposal, but he's not. I've basically just resigned myself to the fact that there's nothing I can do. It hasn't tried to hurt me yet, but every night it reminds me of his plans. I've started noticing a change. Its playful, taunting eyes are starting to look more intense, hungry. Last night I swear I heard its stomach rumble. I don't know how much longer I have, but I just heard the unmistakable sound of a can of pop being opened and footsteps slowly walking across the wall to my room.
I think that's like the least intimidating sound ever, though. just like, hey, we watching MarkBurger again?
The end.
That was definitely creepypasta level, like, writing, because for a second I thought you were gonna like pull the rug and like not have anything happen, and it's just the story of like somebody taking a creepy long time to get a soda.
Which is actually something that I would do if I was sitting down like seriously writing a story, because I like misdirection.
Yeah,
but I feel like creepypasta is not really.
Creepypasta is like misdirection is always like the cliche, like, I was the killer all along, like, right. That type of shit. And like, yeah, there's really nothing like, they don't take something mundane and try to add atmosphere to it. Like, it's always like there's always going to be a supernatural explanation or some shit.
And like, it's always that, at least from the ones that like I said, I've really only the ones that you've read on the show in the prior seasons and the ones we wrote and then the one last week. But it seems like if somebody asked me, so what's my impression of the rules of creepypasta? And instead of looking them up, and I just write stuff and call it creepypasta, and I feel like we're falling in there. But it would be that, like you said, it's not real. Like it's usually got some psychological base to it, but nothing like too in depth. It's usually just the like, am I going crazy? Or like you said, oh, guess what? I'm the killer. Like, yeah, I didn't realize it, or I just remembered that. It's almost always written from a first person perspective.
Yeah,
like it's somebody.
Like, it touches on like kind of the basic, like, first ever horror writer themes. Like if you were given like a writing assignment in a class, they would give you these suggestions to start. So it's like, it's either about like fucking stranger danger type shit, or monsters, or if you're feeling really bold, that like psychological, am I going crazy thing, but that usually ties into the other ones.
Yeah.
You know, so, but it's always like it's always played really loose. That's why yours works in that same vein, as like, it's very, you can tell it's like I was listening to a podcast about that. I think I told you I watched that like Chernobyl miniseries.
Yeah.
And they did a companion podcast for each episode on it. And the guy who wrote it is saying, like, you know, before I really wrote anything, I knew how I wanted to end it. And like, one, that amazed me because I almost never know how it's going to end when I start writing something. But with like creepypasta people, I think they're kind of more like me, where it's just like, well, we know how it starts, so let's just see what happens, because it is practice for.
That was literally my process with this one. Like I said, I just started. I'm like, I knew I wanted a kid home alone in a creepy house, and like I wanted him to slowly like realize something was up, but I didn't know what. And I like say, if I was sitting down like trying to devise an actual horror story, you know, you really want to put time into. I actually just saw something within the last week or so, and I forget who it was from, but it was really cool advice on writing like actual horror, where like it can be about monsters or this or that, but it should always kind of like symbolize some bigger fear.
Right. Well, it's like how like zombie stories, like zombie stories are always like basically a metaphor of our fear of other people. You know,
right.
Like they're not, it's not actually the monster itself, it's what they represent.
Right. And that's a very true of really good horror. Something like this that I wrote in about 4 hours last night was more like, I'm just going to write, and then it's like, well, I need a monster, and it doesn't really represent all that much, except for there are still themes there, like there's something going on that you feel that you can't avoid. It's inevitable.
I genuinely think it's a fucking analogy for diabetes. Like,
you can hear it creeping up on you, but you're like, fuck, there's nothing I can do about it.
Yeah, he's saying like, you know, this shit's gonna go down, but you feel powerless to do anything about it. Either that or just like having fucking some constant fucking roommate who drinks all your soda.
Or both.
Sucking the life
You know,
out of
the
you.
Stupid thing, though, and this is like an embarrassing admission, but as I was writing it, it's like I say, obviously I was going for, and I'm not doing that to deflect, because my real writing's really not much better or different than like my serious writing's not much different than that.
Yeah.
But like obviously I was going for some corniness with like the MarkBurger thing and the fuck this and that, whatever. But as I'm writing it, you know, I'm listening to creepy music to get myself in the mood, and I have headphones on, and there were times when like the dog would walk behind me and you'd still get like, oh fuck, like,
yeah,
jumpy, because you get in that headspace where you're picturing this like desolate, dark house at night where something's going down, and it's just, the whole process is interesting.
That's why you never watch MarkBurger with the lights off. He says that in his channel rules, like.
Yeah. Like I said, I almost guarantee there's somebody out there that calls himself MarkBurger, but
yeah. And we just gave him like 2 more followers. You're welcome, MarkBurger.
So yeah, I hope you enjoyed the original story this week.
I get a kick out of creepypastas as well, but like our stuff is a lot of fun because you just read like that fucking line about like, what would MarkBurger do? It's just like, I want that T-shirt.
Yeah. That'll be if we ever get big and we like sell podcast T-shirt. It won't be the non-essential podcast.
We don't even need to get that big. We just, every fucking show ever has merchandise now, so we just need to be a little bigger than we are. So yeah, that's our I guess our, what do they call it? The stretch goal is to get big enough to sell What Would MarkBurger Do shirts. Yeah. After we feed ourselves, we'll use what's left to make MarkBurger shirts. Yeah, that was good. That was fun. next week I should have mine, the one I'm working on right now, ready. I know I said that would be this week, but I lied. So
that's the harder thing with this format when you're writing original pieces, is it's harder to judge how long it's going to take to write them. When the other format, we were just basically doing notes a lot of the times, and that you can kind of power your way through that if you have to.
Yeah. Provided you can find a fucking topic. Here, it's like it's real easy to have that like starting idea, but actually like fleshing it out and like having a real beginning, middle, or end.
Yeah.
Like yesterday, I was looking at it. I was like, man, I just spent like 5 minutes rereading this fucking intro that's way too long. And like at a certain point, like you have to just be like, all right, I need to like completely rework this to get to the fucking point.
And that is the one thing that I like with like the super corny like creepypasta type writing, is I don't worry. I went through and I actually edited that a little bit today and took out a couple like some of the superfluous like details and sentences were on purpose to kind of give it that feel. But we all have a tendency to do that, where you write too much for no reason.
Well, we talked about it on episode 50, the finale of season 1, about like how, and it's especially true for me because like that last story and the story I'm working on now has some basis in shit that actually happened. So I'm constantly trying to paint the image exactly as I remember it, without thinking like, this doesn't actually help flesh it out. This just is boring. And you need, at a certain point, you need to be like, okay, let the reader fucking put the picture together.
Yeah. Like that's got to be the weirdest thing about being an author, especially an author whose like books get turned into a movie, where it has to be a specific image, because that is the truth about writing, is you've got an image in your head and you can be specific about it, but only to a point. Otherwise you turn into like a fucking engineering manual instead of a story.
Right.
And so you're picturing it one way, and of course you want your readers to picture it the same way that you are, because that's the point. You're trying to convey your story. And then you just have to be okay with the fact that that's not how it works. Everybody pictures.
Yeah. Well, it's just,
but that's kind of one of the cool
things
things about it too. But yeah.
So yeah. So next week we'll have another story. Hope you enjoyed this one. I'm really digging like this shorter format.
Yeah, me too. It's quicker for me to get to food. So
I was just gonna say, like, it's nice to like start and finish a show with energy, so that I can go get food. So yeah, we'll be back next week. Thanks for listening.
Toodaloo.